Okay, I'm going to ask Ed to go ahead and pass out those sheets and make sure Matt gets one back there, and let's make sure we get everybody. I want to begin tonight by talking about this most important item, and that is, should I force my teen to attend church? Should I force my teen to attend church? I tell you, there's a lot of things that we battle. I remember one of the ministers told me that he made a resolution to lose 10 pounds this year. And in May, he revealed to his church, he said, I made a resolution to lose 10 pounds, 15 more to go. And then he told me that he was going to his office one day and he decided, a donut and a coffee sound really good. So he said, if there's nobody parked right in front of the donut shop, I'm going to stop and get one. He said it took him 7 trips around the block to find his parking space that he wanted. And we all have battles, right? But this is the one that's the most important. This sentence that you're reading on the screen is a sentence that I heard more than any other sentence in the church. In my 40 years as a youth minister, 7 years as a youth minister, 33 as a minister, and that is, Rush, should I force my teen to go to church? Now, we know the church is not the church building. I should have put up there, but I didn't. I decided not to. I just throw the caveat out there and tell you what I did, and that is, it should say, should I force my teen to attend church building or church services? Because we know the church is right here, 1 Corinthians chapter 6. It's in our hearts. This is the temple of God. So we have to ask ourselves that question. Should I force my teen to go to church? What have you heard from the teens who don't want to come to church? I'll tell you, I'm studying this Saturday with Cornelius and Robin. And do you know the reason they're not baptized? Is because her son Cameron won't get out of bed and come to church so she can be baptized in front of her son. And I said, don't wait too long.
How old is Cameron?
20, I don't know, 25, something like that. So she's decided to hinge her decision to be baptized on her son. Oh, Carol, you've seen that happen, haven't you? Every Saturday. We know that Robin's still using that example. We talk about, I asked them, I said, when were you baptized? They said, well, we weren't. We were saved in March, and then we never were baptized. So we were studying, Jesus says you have to believe and be baptized to be saved. They think they were saved. And then this week, we studied 1 Peter chapter 3, where Peter says, your baptism saves you. It can't be any plainer than that. Jesus and Peter feel the same way. But still, she's waiting for Cameron to come to church before she's baptized. Cameron's excuse is he's in bed and he can't get up. Doesn't want to get up. It's not that he can't get up. He just doesn't want to get up. And she doesn't force him. It's...
Can he shower?
So what have you heard? What are excuses that teenagers? What now?
How old is he? 18.
I said I think he's 25.
Their son is 25, because she doesn't look that old.
Maybe he's 20.
Doesn't matter.
He's worked. He's got a job. He's out of school. Okay, 20.
But when you talk to her, you
Okay.
ask her, who tells you how you're saved? Your son? Or
I told her,
that's the only question she's got to answer.
I tell her every week, get him out of bed.
She's wrong.
You can do
Well,
it.
she's wrong. She needs to get baptized.
Take-
Getting him out of bed's another
Take a
issue.
spray bottle and spray him in the face and get him out of bed. I've tried everything I can. Just keep.
So you're coming over, you're baptized in the bathtub.
There you go. I'll do that this Saturday. Okay. What reasons have you heard that teenagers have said that I don't want to go to church anymore? Matt?
I have a plethora of teenagers in the house, all the same age. I don't know why I thought that was a great idea, but that's what God thought. So I'm going with
He's
it.
got a great sense of humor.
He thought you
it's-
needed some discipline.
Well, yeah, well, 3 of them are 14, so, that's boring.
Yep. Or,
I'm trying not to call any children out here.
Yeah.
Boring, they don't have time,
Too busy.
busy,
too busy, they don't wanna be known as being too religious.
yeah.
That's one, or a Bible thumper or whatever. They don't want their whole world to revolve around God. I got that. You know, there's a lot of different things.
I figured that you'd hear them all, just like I did.
Heard a couple.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of reasons that people, excuses, let's not call them reasons. They have excuses not to come to church.
And then you know, my 2 girls, you know, they're used to going to church. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, even if it's boring for them,
Yeah.
hey, at least I got a couple friends there or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you bring 2 new people that don't know as many people. They weren't as accustomed as to going to church every week because they didn't go with their dad. So it's like, you know, trying to get them to go and get it a regular routine has been a little bit
Yeah,
more of a challenge, but
yeah. I tell you, it's amazing how many things they can come up with. Judy?
Also, sadly, it's because some of them feel that they don't have friends here.
Yes.
And there's big difference.
Matt mentioned that, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I missed that, but, and that goes through all ages. So, those of us that are here regularly and have always attended, we really need to reach out to, we can tell some people feel like they're in an isolation zone.
Yeah,
And a lot of times it's their fault because they don't mix so much. But a lot of times we need to step out to people who
yes,
seem more alone. Jeremy was one person when he first started coming, and he was over there a lot, and he didn't know a lot of people, and we started, talking to him more and more, and I think it helped him. And now he's, big part of the Bible studies and stuff, and
yeah.
we all
Are you
really
talking about
appreciate
Jeremy?
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, that's kind of the idea of doing a lot of, youth events is to get the kids familiar with one another. Because when they are familiar with each other, they're more comfortable coming into the building and hanging out and
That's right.
trying to get more. When they feel like they're the outsider, it makes it really hard. When they start feeling comfortable, that's when, kind of the magic starts happening.
Exactly. We had our phone, when I was a youth minister, back in 1900 and none of your business. I got
Last
a call
century.
at 3:00 in the morning.
That was last century.
Do you know what happens to your heart when you get a call at 3:00 in the morning?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's dead. So Fran picked it up and the girl was crying on the other end. And Fran didn't know who it was. She couldn't even make out what the girl was saying. She was crying so bad. So finally, she gave me the phone and I talked to her for a little bit. Eventually, I got Jeannie to settle down. And I found out what her name was. She told me what was wrong. She said, Russ, I just don't think anybody loves me. Now, we had 88 teens in our group at the Echo Meadows Church of Christ, and she felt that nobody loved her. Jeannie was what some church growth experts would say is a fringe member. She didn't fit in with anybody. She wasn't in any of the cliques that we tried to stop, but it's just a fact. She said, I don't feel that anybody loves me. And I said, well, Jeannie, Fran and I love you. And we don't want, she said, I might end my life. I said, we love you. We don't want you to harm yourself. Don't do this. We prayed with her and I told her that Fran and I loved her and she settled down. And at any moment, I thought I was gonna hear a gunshot or pills or something going down. And she hung up and she's still a member, her family's a member, her kids are faithful. It just worked out beautifully, but she just needed to hear somebody loved her. And do you know what happened to her? Because she disobeyed her mom said, you're not going back to church. Her punishment was I'm gonna keep you out of the youth program. Because she knew that was very precious to Jeannie. But can you imagine? That's not the way to punish a child. They need to be in the church. They need to be in the youth ministry, you know? So we've got all different kinds of ways to raise kids. And I want to give you some suggestions of what I did with kids that were brought to me that wouldn't come to church. The first thing that we mentioned when they say, this is what a lot of them say. Well, you know, I just don't think that it's important to come to church. And a lot of them will make the excuse, the idea, well, what are some excuses that they use? In other words, what are we gonna do to force a child to come to church? One of the techniques that parents use is, well, you don't wanna go to church, you don't wanna go to school, we make you go to school, you don't wanna brush your teeth, so we make you brush your teeth. There's some things that you have to do that you don't wanna do. Yes,
I mean, when I
Miles.
was younger, I mean, I wasn't perfect. There were times where I didn't want to go to church either, but I think what helped was that, my parents hung out with other parents of the youth group outside of church. So, I mean, I was very close with Kyler, and that was mainly because my parents hung out with Chris and Annie a lot. And that made church more enjoyable because our parents hung out and
yeah,
we didn't just hang out on Sundays and Wednesday nights. It was a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday type thing.
that's
And
right.
that was and with other people too. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes when the parents don't hang out, the kids grow apart maybe.
Yeah. Miles, what are you gonna do if you ever have kids and then one of them doesn't wanna go to church?
That's why I'm in this class. So
What's that?
that's why I'm in the class.
Oh, okay,
I'll
good,
find
good.
Well, I'll
I
tell
want
you,
to give you some techniques later on, how to talk to a child and get them back to church. Randy?
I didn't have a choice.
Oh,
Right, right.
My
join the
parents,
club.
parents didn't give me a choice.
No,
You live under my roof,
that's,
you're eating my food, we give you an allowance or whatever, you're going to church. Well, they didn't have to talk to me that way,
yeah,
but I wasn't given a choice.
no, there was no verbiage.
You wanna change underwear 5 days a week, or, no, you keep that underwear on for the month. We'll teach you a lesson. You wanna wear dirty underwear? You don't wanna brush your teeth?
Yeah,
Your friends will disappear one at a time. No, I wasn't given a choice.
yeah.
And I think some of this is parents just aren't strong enough to say, no, you're going,
Yeah.
period.
It's
Zach, and then Judy, then Tom.
Well, I think to a certain extent, there's a difference between like a lot of what you're talking about is with the child who's like, I really don't want to go, but like you can still convince them to. Whereas
Yeah.
there's a difference between that and forcing them. I don't think forcing a child to go to when they're like, I don't believe it, I don't want to be a Christian. That's a bad idea because like
Right.
God has never given us the command to make people Christians.
Mhm.
He'll do that for us.
Yeah.
I understand what
Judy,
Zach's
then
saying.
Tom, then Randy.
I-
Judy?
I think what though ahead of our topic is, many of us in here, when our kids were growing up, they didn't do anything else on Sundays. They didn't think of doing anything else on Sunday mornings.
Yes.
We were going to church and they got in the car and went with.
Yeah,
So there never was, I don't know how it happens in some homes, but my kids just never thought of doing anything else, because that's
No.
what we did.
no,
Every time the doors were open, we were there, and they went.
but Judy, it's happening.
Oh,
It didn't happen in my family or your family or your
I know,
family,
but
but it's happening now.
but if they're not taken regularly, it's just
Yeah.
like some people say, well, you can't discipline a child that's 12 or 13 years old, because now you can be arrested for it.
Mm.
Well, if they've been disciplined from the get-go, they don't need to be so
That's right.
disciplined when they're
That's
12 or
right.
13.
Tom, then Randy.
a lot of it is Randy pointed out. And when I grew up, I never thought about not going to church. I grew up Catholic, so I didn't have the benefit that we all have, that I have now and have for the last 10 years or 11 years of understanding the Bible.
Mhm.
I was brought up, my family was Catholic, we went to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
There was no vote, but because there was no vote, there was never any argument about it either. I mean,
No.
and you were ready to go to church, but when I brought up my daughter, I had started to drift from the Catholic Church,
Mhm.
and I would go periodically. And I think every time we went, Melissa came with us, and, it was never an argument.
See,
We got along with people, we liked going.
Yeah.
But when my mother passed, Melissa was about 13 years old, I stopped going to church. I stopped going to church. The family stopped going to church. So that's a different kind of a problem. But had I been brought up, and I'm dealing with that now, I'm trying to bring her back
Mhm.
to Christ and to the church, not to the
Sure.
Catholic Church.
Good,
But,
good.
but I think the real issue was parental respect. Miles and his family, they respect Tyler. Tyler doesn't have to tell them what to do, although he may occasionally, but there's respect there. In a lot of homes today, you don't see that. In my day, in Randy's day, in your day, we never questioned our parents. We never said why. They said, go, we're gonna go. And we understood.
Exactly. Well, that's
That's a
why
generational change too.
generational change.
Parents today want to be, well, I want to be nice to my kids.
Friends.
Well, how nice you gonna be?
That's why if my grandson ever stops coming, I'm sending Tyler over there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
That's exactly right.
Randy?
No, I mean, Tom mentioned some things. It's about parental responsibility.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't just start at the point where you have to force a child.
No.
It starts long before that. But there are things we were forced to do growing up that we didn't like, that we learned over time that was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
And, you know, you don't want to have to force your child,
that's right.
but a 13, 14, 15-year-old teenager's not going to tell me what they're not going to do.
Exactly.
And if I have to dress them and bring them to church and encourage them that way, you know, that's one of the most difficult positions to
It
be in.
is. That's
You
why we're
wanna-
studying this, Randy.
That's right. You
It's
want
the
to
most
prevent
important
that
thing.
by starting early.
That's right.
But again, it's about parental
But you can't force them,
responsibility.
and that's what our whole situation is about. Should I force my teen to attend church? We're gonna find out some techniques that will allow us not to have to force them. Okay, I've got a lesson that we're never gonna get to. Dad and then Tom.
Well, I'm gonna go with Randy here. You guys are young.
Yeah,
Just yesterday.
gotta start young.
Just
he said.
yesterday. Sam was talking, she says, you know, Grace said she didn't wanna go to dinner with, Dan, her and Dan's brothers. and
Grace
sisters.
didn't wanna go to dinner.
Grace, his 11-year-old daughter. Sam told her, you know, I was well over 18 before I ever told my dad it when he said, we're going here, let's go.
That's right, that's right.
The first time my mom said I could bow out.
They do better
But
till
you
they
knew, what you were, hey, come on, guys, get in the car. They just get in the car.
Yeah,
We're like,
yeah.
where are we going? What are we gonna do? It's terrible that it's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tom.
And one more point I think is important. If people fail to consider the consequences a week, a month, a year from now. And if they did,
You mean teenagers?
no, the parents.
Oh, the parents.
Parents aren't planning, they just want to solve the problem right now. Okay, stop your crying, I'll get in the car, I'll see you in an hour and I'll bring you a donut. No, what's gonna happen in a month? You'll never get that kid to church. They don't think, the parents, I
Yeah.
think, is part of the problem.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they just wanna walk away from
Easy.
the conflict.
It's one easy.
So the reason we're studying this is because we could talk about bad things, bad ideas. Kids don't know, they're immature. But we've got to find some way from the Bible to get them to come to church and not to have to force them. Now, I've heard this excuse when I was in the teen program, Echo Meadows down in Toledo. That, well, Susie may as well not come to church. She doesn't like it. She might as well not come. It's not gonna help her any. No, that's not the thought, you know? One of the things that I've always loved about having my grandson here is he's gonna catch something from David's sermon. He may not like it. Now, I don't have this problem with Drew. He loves coming, but if Drew didn't wanna come, I know that if he's here, he's gonna get something from the word because Hebrews chapter 4:12, the word of God is sharper than any two. It's gonna get somebody. It's gonna get a teenager. So one of these times, the Bible's gonna get it, you know, but we have to get them here so they can hear that word. So what I wanna talk about is this, and fill in the blanks in those papers. All Christian parents want their children to have an active faith in God. Don't you agree with that? We all want our children to have a faith in God. And we don't want them to have it because Matt tells them to come or Patrick tells them to come. We want them to have an active faith in their own hearts. I'll never forget, one of my elders at the Parkside Church of Christ called me on Sunday night crying. I said, Bob, what's wrong? He said, Russ, my daughter's at Harding, and she went to the youth group tonight, the youth group devotion, and she called me, and she said, after the youth devotion, she said, Dad, now I know why you made me come to church all those years. And he was crying. And you know, he told me, Russ, it was worth every dollar to send her to Harding to discover her own faith. And I thought, you know, that's what we try to do. We try to get them exposed to the truth, to the word, to people in the church. And eventually there's going to be relationship there. There's going to be something that happens. And I have never known Christian parents that didn't want their kids to have a faith. Yeah, Patrick, you had your hand up. Oh, you didn't? Okay. Sorry. Matt?
I was gonna say, I mean, one of the important things, and I think teenagers, just talking to my kids, is, you know, sometimes they just feel like church is just about listening to a sermon and singing songs,
Right.
right? And sometimes we don't grow that way. I'm trying to think of the right words, but more of like a service oriented. At some point, you got to get out there and show why God is good,
Yes.
right? And what He's done for you. So it's teaching them gratitude. It's teaching them servanthood. It's teaching them to, you know, go out and bake cookies for somebody and drop it off. Those are just as important as coming to the service.
Exactly.
You know, and help with the meal ministry. It's amazing. Go help at ChristNet, right? You know, and you're gonna see people that are really struggling who do need God. You know, and then sometimes it's amazing. You meet people that way that have nothing, that their faith in God is way bigger than what
Yeah.
you would ever have.
In fact, Matt, I've got you in my lesson. I want to ask you to say something next week, but I want to thank you personally because when we went to Blessed Hope and served the homeless, the meal, I'll never forget, Drew was at the window serving people. And I was washing dishes. One time in my life, I washed dishes. And I was watching Drew, and a lady came through with 2 little children. And it really changed Drew, because he was used to serving the adults. But when those 2 little kids came through, I saw him change. So I want to thank you
There's something
personally.
you can relate to, you know?
Yeah,
Hey, I'm that age
Exactly.
too, you know, that I think a lot of times, you know, you look around and we're an older congregation, you know, and I think some of the kids look at it, it's like, these are just a bunch of old people. How can I relate to any of this
Yeah.
stuff? But when they see people their age going through things and, you know, needing the help and they can help them, there's nothing better.
well, I'm 73, so you're talking about people older than me, right?
Well, there
Thank
might
you.
be some, yeah.
There aren't that many, are there? Okay, so how should a parent respond when their child announces, I don't want to attend church anymore? And I said the classic way is, well, you have to do things you don't want to do sometimes. That's brushing your teeth and going to school. And I know if they don't go to school, we go to jail, okay? I understand that. But that's not the way to answer a child. You know, we're gonna discover some ways to talk to them so they will want to go. Yeah, Zach,
Wouldn't asking why be the most obvious first step?
you're getting ahead of me, but yeah, that's on the outline. You got the outline there? We're gonna get to that. Why not? Isn't that a good thing to ask, Zachariah?
Well, I mean, yeah,
Instead of saying, well, you need to go, find out why.
like children are people too. They've got
Yeah.
a brain.
Yeah.
There's something going on in their head
That's
making
right.
them say, I don't want to go. You
That's
want to
right.
find out what that is, because like we already know, just to like think in analogy to like diseases and stuff, you don't treat the symptoms,
Right,
you
the
treat the
problem.
problem.
That's right, that's right. So that's why I say I don't want to have to raise my grandson the way my dad raised me, because we didn't even ask. We knew we had to. But I want to get a dialogue with the child. And I want to teach us how to have a dialogue with these kids that don't want to attend church anymore, all right? So, on your outline, parents, this presents parents with a dilemma. There's a dilemma here, and we've got to find out how to remedy that. Is it gonna work on all our teens? No. But we've got to have some techniques that God would approve of so that we can present it to the kids. So, on one hand, a forced faith is no faith at all. If we make a child come in here and sit down, there's no faith. We're just making them sit here. But I said before, the Bible's is pretty good, isn't it, at motivating people. They are going to be touched by a verse from David's sermon. I know that. So, what's our dilemma? On the other hand, it's important for a child to grow up with a strong Christian influence. So that's our technique here, is to try to find out how to grow them up so that they can have a strong Christian influence. I really think that a lot of it has to try to develop a relationship. Drew and I go to the movies every Tuesday because it's $5 and free popcorn. But he's gotten me to 2 scary movies lately. I almost needed the paddles to start my heart. But normally he doesn't want to go to a scary movie, but lately he has. And it kind of freaked me out. And it freaked him out too, by the way. I said, don't try to get me, don't hang on me, Drew. This is scary for me too. But you've got to develop a relationship with him. Now, last week, he told me, now, I wanted to ask him about Madison, because that's his new girlfriend. And I said, well, how's it going with Matt? And I asked him all kinds of questions about her. I said, is she gonna come to church? He said, she better. So that's the way he answered it. But on the way home from the movie by Nate Bargatze, he said, well, I wanted you and Grandma to know that we're going steady. He laughs because they don't say going steady today. Going steady in my day was give Fran my ring, and she would go and get, what's that stuff, Judy, they put on the ring?
Angora.
Angora. Wrap it in Angora and then it'll fit, right? But they don't go steady today, they just hang.
Yeah.
Oh, who you hanging with, you know? Matt, okay, well, he told us, we're going steady, and then he laughed because they don't use that kind of language. So I told Heather about it, so she's glad they're going steady. So, who knows? But you have to develop a relationship where they will share with you like that. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do with our grandson. How should a parent respond? Here's 4 guidelines. Number 1 guideline, and I want you to take this down because you may need this. Matt, you need to teach this to the kids too. They need to hear this lesson too. Should a parent respond? Here are 4 guidelines. Guideline number 1, do not panic or overreact. Say it with me. Do not panic or overreact. That's the technique for some parents, right? They freak out. Are you kidding me? You don't want to go to church? We can't comprehend that. Those of us who were just brought to church, no questions asked. And so some people freak out. Charlie, what did you say when you tried to stop going to church? He never did he? See? Okay, you got it made. All right, an emotional fight with a teen is always a losing proposition. Be calm, walk away, and pray for wisdom. It's better to shut down the communication and come back later when you've thought it through and think of what to say. And you know what? I want you to say with me, this with me, just a short sentence. And that is, do not overreact. Say that. Do not overreact. That's so important because if you're going to establish a dialogue with your child, you've got to act like you want to talk to them. Zachariah said, why not? That's typical. Why not? And if they say that, well, I don't get anything out of the sermon, but the Lord's Supper and prayer, why not? Ask them. They'll be honest with you. Just ask questions. That's the most important thing. Say that with me. Ask questions. Again, ask questions. You need to start a dialogue with them to find out why. Okay, second, calmly ask your child, why not? That's what Zachariah said. Then listen carefully to the response. And what do we teach the kids every week? James chapter 1, verse 19. Be slow.
Quick to listen.
There you go. Quick to listen,
Slow to speak.
and
Slow to anger.
slow to anger. Yes. We have to follow that verse because we want to open up the dialogue. If you just yell at them or shut them down or cut them off, that does no good at all. Does no good at all. So we have to try to establish that dialogue. You know, this is one thing I'm going to say before we go any further. This is important for parents, but you know what? It's as important or more important for grandparents.
Grandparents, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have to
We don't do that.
develop that. Because you know, some grandparents are more influential with their kid than the parents, right? Not all the time, but sometimes. So grandparents need this lesson too. We need to really see how to develop that dialogue. Okay, why? Because it indicates respect for their feelings. If we develop that dialogue, we're showing them that we care about the reason, we care about why. That's a great way to develop that relationship. Talk to them and ask them why. Why not? Why not? Just keep the dialogue going. I love to ask questions because, man, you can get a lot of information from somebody by asking questions. So that outline, I want you to fill that in. It indicates respect for their feelings, and that's important. It helps us to remain calm. Some parents need to remain calm. You know, I've had some parents that, you know, they expected me as a youth minister at Echo Meadows to raise their child. So if there was something wrong with their child, they said, Russ, I've got this problem I want you to take care of. And I can't raise their children. Man, you can't raise kids, but you have to, they know you have influence with the kids. You and the people that work with our teens are very important. And I want to thank you for that publicly, because that is very important. And the kids here have a lot of respect for you as well. So help us remain calm. Be a calm communicator. Don't yell at them. It'll help us with our subsequent response. If we're quiet and slow, it'll help us develop something to say. Now, if my child comes up with a problem to me, here's what I always say. Go talk to your mom. No, I don't. I try to develop, find out what the problem is and see what we can do about it. But it'll help us with the way we respond. Teens feel lonely because they don't have friends in the youth group, right? That happens sometimes. Or they think the kids aren't as up to communicating with them. Or they'll say, and that's why I love the way Matt runs our youth ministry here. Our youth minister, Matt, and co-workers do a wonderful job being inclusive with our kids. We shouldn't expect our youth minister to raise our child. He's not here to raise our child. He's just there to assist them with social events and Bible study to bring them closer to the Lord. So that's really what I wanted to communicate on that level. But we have to work at opportunities to build relationships with other youth. If our child doesn't have a friend in the church, find somebody that'll come over to your house for dinner and spend time with them. Help them, work at it. That's why I have that word work up there. You have to work at it to make sure your kids are getting to know somebody in the church. You know, sociologists tell you, and I shared this with you a few weeks ago, they say that if you don't have 6 friends in your life, you probably won't make it through life. And the church is the same way. If we don't have 6 close friends in the church, we probably won't stay at that church. That's a tough assignment. To get our kids to know other kids. To get other kids, our kids. to know some of the adults. And we got a lot of adults in this church that would love to make grandchild out of one of your kids, you know? That's important. So we have to do that to make sure that they can build relationships with other youth. Make sure that we're bringing kids over to our house to spend time with them and just open up that communication. Okay, encourage your child to bring a friend from school or church activity. You know, if they can't form a relationship with one of the children here, which I think is crazy, I know there's kids who would love to be friends with them. Tell them to bring somebody from school. Bring a friend. We have friends at school that would come with us if we ask. So you have to work at this. Suggest they bring Susie with them. Suggest they bring Johnny with them. We've got a lot of kids that do that here. You just look around the auditorium and our kids are bringing their friends all the time, aren't they?
Isn't John Lucas got here with Keeson brought Lucas?
That's right. Keeson brought Lucas.
Really, really developed.
Exactly. I think they were together in a band or something.
Mhm.
And, wow, I'm telling you. So Keesa, I says, those are the first baptisms that you brought somebody to church, to the Lord. But those are things that happen here all the time. We've got a lot of kids that would bring somebody from school to our church. Ask them to verbalize a specific question. Don't settle for, well, I'm just bored. It's boring. Ask them to specify what is it boring and find a resource or ask a youth minister, ask the preacher, ask one of your shepherds for resources. There's all kinds of resources out there to use, aren't there, Matt? To develop that time.
There are, but if you can look at, I don't see any 10-year-olds, but 12 and 13, we've got a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds here that have all their toys.
Yeah,
And it's I think a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, maybe even a 7 or 8-year-old should have a book to read, and that they're not really paying attention, they're being quiet. But as soon as they hit about 10 and they get that phone for whatever reason, and the parents, there's a state law now, Michigan state law, you kids can't have a phone in their classroom anymore.
right.
And I think we ought to have that law right here.
Mhm. In the church?
Yeah, because when they're distracted, they're not paying attention. They're bored in church because they're doing something else. If they would pay attention even for a third of the time, they'd learn something.
Yeah,
But I think we need to help them.
yeah, I agree.
Not all of them, but some of them like to drift off, whatever it is.
That's right. Yeah, we've got to find a way to get them involved in worship. So find a resource from a youth minister, a preacher, or a shepherd for a resource and be, how many of you have ever heard Dr. Lehman? Anybody in here heard of him?
Well, I think he wrote a couple books.
Yeah, quite a few books, dozens of them. My favorite one was Making Your Child Mind Without Losing Yours. That's my favorite book by him. The other one is Adolescence Isn't Forever. So we'll get through this, Thank you, Jim. So we're gonna have to go through this lesson next week. But Christianity is based on truth and it can survive honest examination. Don't be afraid of questions and don't shut a child off when they ask a question. That's not good for their faith. That's not good in developing this habit of worship and learning about the Lord and the Bible. So don't be afraid of a child to ask questions. Matt, I bet you've been asking a lot of questions, haven't you? The
It's been,
teens.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just the ones in the house has been interesting, but
Just your kids, right?
one thing that I think that has helped, and I've gone over with the teenagers upstairs, my teenagers, is how modern society was shaped by Christianity, pretty much.
Yeah.
When you start looking and even psychology, if you ever see a counselor, they'll tell you, here's how you have a healthy relationship. And my counselor told me this, after I went through a divorce, and all like, wow, I wish I would have known, like, I guess I should have known that, but, I didn't. But when you think about it, most relationships now, the first thing they want to do is touch each other, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much the last thing that God tells us to do.
Yeah.
But that's also the last thing that modern psychology tells you. You got to get
That's
to know the person. You got to get to trust the person. Without that stuff, then you're in for a disaster.
That's right.
And if you're doing it backwards,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're obligated to commit to somebody that you don't even know, and you wonder why your relationship's terrible.
Exactly, exactly.
God knew what he was doing.
Zechariah, yes, Zechariah, Ephesians 6:4, Judy, Colossians 3:21. I want to end with these two verses. That's right, Matt. That thought about, the kind of way that we can get some kind of commitment out of that is so important. You just touched on it there. That's what you're experiencing, isn't it, as a youth minister?
Sure.
And I'm telling you, when next week I want to ask you some questions, Matt, because this is stuff that we need to hear from you too. Yeah, Zechariah, read that verse for me.
And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord.
Okay, that's why I have this conclusion. Engage in personal soul searching. Have you neglected your relationship with your child? Sometimes we need to examine our life. Have we not been working with our relationship with our kids? A lot of people don't work on it. It takes time and effort. Do you have an antagonistic attitude toward your child? My way or the highway, or because I said so. Those are things those don't work generally. It might work for a while, but they're gone as soon as they can get out of there. But I want to end with this. You read, right, Judy?
Which goes along with when Zach said a long time ago not to force.
Right.
We can't force. And I totally agree with Randy. My kids did what I said in the house,
Yes.
but forcing is not saving them.
My brother-in-law, Bud, lived with my father-in-law, and mother-in-law till he was 33. And Jim told him, Bud, you're under my roof. You're going to church on Sunday. That was it. Law was made. Read that verse for us.
Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged.
If we refuse to have a discussion, a civilized discussion with these kids, they won't feel good. They will be bitter. And it will be a situation where they won't have a relationship with the Lord. Now, I'll tell you, my brother, Ron, he left, when he went to the army, he never came back to our hometown. Him and Dad didn't get along. Mostly it was the length of his hair. It was too long for my dad. So Ron never came home. When he was 44, he invited me over to his house and we had a Bible study. We baptized him and his family. But it took him till he was 44. What's that verse in Proverbs? Train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart. When he's old, he won't depart. Ron didn't depart when he was old. He came back when he was old. And that's true. They come back eventually. He said, every time I went by the church building at Parkside Church of Christ, I had a bad feeling. It bothered him for years. So it took him a while to come around and understand it.
Good.
I just wanted to say, Russ, that last night we did something fun at our house. Karen and I had Sean over and we were celebrating Vera's birthday.
Oh,
And so Elaine had to leave, but we had Grant and Vera, Karen and I and Sean. I don't know if anybody's ever played Apples to Apples before, the
Yeah.
game. Well, there's an Apples to Apples Bible version.
oh,
We played that last night. And we really could see the kids were getting something out of that.
wow.
And it was just, we made it a fun evening. And, Grant has expressed interest in becoming, getting baptized.
No
But
kidding.
we just had this opportunity to do something fun as a family. And that's a great way to break the ice sometimes,
Amen.
and prove that God is important in
Yeah.
your life. And
That's
we
great.
made it a fun, worthwhile evening.
Amen.
Yay, yay.
Randy, then Tom, you got the last word. Oh, Randy, you got the last word.
The church has changed over time.
Yes.
Our culture has changed over time, and it's affecting the church. But to Tom's point earlier, when I grew up, I sat on the front pew, and I heard 1,500 sermons from my father growing
You
up.
sat in the front pew, yeah.
We'd go to gospel meetings. I'd be listening, but when I was a kid, I always had a tablet and a pencil. And I would either be making notes or I'd be drawing,
Yeah.
but I was listening. And our son Jeff was the same way. He'd watch television and he'd be drawing and he'd be learning, but he'd be listening. We don't know what our children are doing anymore because they're sitting behind us. I would love to see the parents encourage their children, whatever age, to be sitting in front of them
Yeah.
where they can see the whites of David's eyes and actually be paying attention to what he's saying and have their Bibles in their hands. I think that would have an impact on our kids. I really do. But now, I mean, I do the announcements, I walk through the auditorium. I can't tell you how many of them are playing games on their cell phone. But if the parents could be parents and take control of that situation and have the kids sit forward where they actually are singing, are listening, and they would be growing.
So that's what we have to do. Next week, I want to go into, go ahead.
That was it.
Thank you, Jim. Next week, we're gonna get deeper into this, other reasons, other techniques that we can use to get through to our kids. Because this is not going away. In fact, it's intensified. And we've got to work with our kids, how to communicate with them. And I think we're gonna learn some great things next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Mhm.